His lips were still wet from the wine he drank off my stomach. My dress was hanging from one shoulder, my bra barely hanging on, and his jeans were around his knees. We were in the back seat of his black truck, parked right behind the restaurant where my husband and I had our first date years ago. I couldn't believe I was doing this, but at the same time, I could. He whispered, "You sure you want to go all the way?" I didn't answer. I just pulled my thong to the side and climbed on top of him. No guilt, no second guessing, just raw, heated need. I didn't moan. I bit my lip and grabbed the back of his neck, trying to keep my balance while he filled me, slow at first, then deeper, like he was digging for the truth I never told anyone. The truth? I had been gone for a long time. Long before this night. Long before I spread my legs for my husband's childhood friend. I rode him like I didn't have a home. Like I didn't have a husband sleeping in our bed. Like I wasn't a mother with a child who looked like both of us. And when I came, I cried into his neck. Not because of guilt. Because it was the first time in a long time that I actually felt something. To everyone who's been following the Top Stories Vault, welcome back. You already know we don't play over here. Salute to the vault seekers, the ones who crave real, raw, unfiltered stories that hit different. If this is your first time, buckle up. Click that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. You don't want to miss what comes next. This one? This one is going to wreck you, in all the best ways. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Sasha. I'm 33, been married to Jordan for 9 years. He's a decent man, hardworking, quiet, predictable, maybe too predictable. We have a son, Jaden. He's 6, looks just like his dad. They both love oatmeal and cartoons and quiet mornings. I used to love those things too, until I didn't. Until life started to feel like laundry and leftovers. Until the little things that once made me smile started feeling like chains. It started with a message on Instagram. "Hey, stranger, still rocking that killer smile?" It was Damon, Jordan's best friend since childhood. The guy who used to crash on our couch when his life got messy. The one I always thought was dangerous. But I never let myself go there. Until I did. At first it was harmless. DMS, emojis, compliments. Then came the late-night voice notes. The kind that made my thighs warm. Then came the phone call where he said, "I always wondered what you tasted like." And I didn't hang up. Damon made me feel seen. Not like Jordan, who saw me as the mother of his child. Damon saw me as the woman I forgot I was. Desirable. Wild. Dirty. One night, after Jordan fell asleep early on the couch, like he always does, I texted Damon just one word. Now. He picked me up 20 minutes later. That was our first time, but not the last. Sometimes we did it in the backseat of his truck. Other times, at motels I told my husband were self-care Airbnbs. I told myself it was just sex, just escape, just something to stop me from drowning in boredom. But I lied to myself, because Damon wasn't just touching my body. He was unlocking parts of me I buried. And now I don't know how to go back. Jordan started to notice. He'd ask, "Why are you always smiling at your phone?" Or, "You've been going out a lot lately?" I'd lie. I got good at it. Almost too good. But something about tonight. Something about the way Damon held me in the back seat, whispered my name like a secret prayer. It shook me. Because for the first time I wasn't just cheating on my husband. I was falling for the wrong man. I told myself I could stop anytime. But addiction doesn't come with warning labels. It sneaks in through the cracks of routine. And by the time you feel it, really feel it, you're already in too deep. Jordan doesn't know. Jaden doesn't know. But I do. I know I've started something I can't control. And the truth is, I don't know if I want to. The next morning, I stood in the shower longer than usual, letting the water run down my body like it could wash away what I did. But it didn't. I could still feel Damon's hands on my waist. I could still feel the bite marks on my inner thigh. And I could still hear the soft moans I let out when he told me, "You were never meant to be his." That one sentence has lived rent-free in my head ever since. Jordan was in the kitchen making breakfast. Eggs, toast, and that bland-ass turkey bacon he swears by. He smiled when I walked in like nothing was off. "Sleep okay?" he asked, flipping eggs like a loyal husband who has no idea his wife was getting rearranged in the backseat of a Silverado just hours ago. "Yeah," I lied, sipping coffee to cover the taste of guilt. "Just tired." He nodded and kissed my forehead. God, that kiss, that innocent, trusting kiss almost broke me. But it didn't stop me. You'd think cheating would make you feel dirty, ashamed, paranoid. And yeah, there's a little of that. But mostly, it made me feel alive, like I was burning from the inside out. Damon texted me later that day. "D. Can't stop thinking about last night. Your body's a drug." I stared at the message too long before replying. Me. "What are we doing?" D. Everything we shouldn't. And loving every second of it. And damn it. He was right. I wasn't dumb. I knew how messy this could get. Damon was more than just a fling. He was Jordan's best friend. They grew up together, played ball together, got drunk at prom together. Hell, Damon was the best man at our wedding. I remember him toasting us, saying, "Jordan found his queen." I wonder if he knew even back then that he wanted to take her for himself. We met again 2 nights later at a hotel just outside town. I booked it under a fake name. Told Jordan I had a workshop. The minute I stepped into that room, Damon pushed me against the wall and kissed me like he owned me. Like he waited his whole life for this. Clothes came off fast, the way he bent me over the edge of the bed, one hand on my neck, the other gripping my thigh. I forgot who I was. I forgot who I was married to. I forgot I was supposed to be a wife and a mother and a decent human being. All I wanted was more. After, we lay in bed, still sweaty, still catching our breath. He looked at me, really looked at me and said, "You ever think about leaving him?" I froze. "Don't," I said quickly. "That's not what this is." He smirked. "Then why do you keep coming back?" I didn't have an answer. Because the truth is, I didn't know. Maybe I wanted to be caught. Maybe I wanted someone to save me from the cage I built for myself. Or maybe I was never meant to be the good girl. That night when I got home, Jordan was sitting on the couch with Jaden asleep on his chest. He looked peaceful, the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. "Hey, babe," he whispered, not wanting to wake our son. "How was the workshop?" I nodded, forced a smile, and whispered back, "Long. Boring. I'm glad to be home." And I meant that, even while my panties were still damp from another man's touch. Even while I stood there with sin on my skin. I still wanted to be home. Wanted it. But didn't belong. Because the truth, home wasn't peace anymore. It was just a place to hide the mess. And I was becoming the mess no one saw coming. By the time I walked into the kitchen the next morning, I felt like a completely different person. It wasn't the guilt that weighed me down. No. It was the hunger. That ache in the pit of my stomach that only Damon could feed. Jordan was at the stove again, doing his best to act like everything was normal, flipping pancakes with a smile. He had no idea I had spent the night with another man again. I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending. "Morning, baby," I said, my voice thick with something I didn't even recognize. He smiled at me, oblivious. "Hey, you sleep all right? You look a little tired." "I'm fine," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." He reached over, squeezing my hand. "We should do something together this weekend. Just us. It's been a while." I nodded, but in my mind, all I could think of was Damon's text from last night. D, you're all I think about. When can I see you again? But I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. Jordan set the pancakes on the table, but I barely touched them. My stomach was in knots, twisting with the same familiar hunger that made me crave Damon's touch more than I ever wanted to admit. After breakfast, I told Jordan I was going to meet a friend for coffee. I had to get away. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I walked to my car, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I started the engine and drove, not knowing where I was going, but needing to get away from the weight of everything. My phone buzzed. It was Damon. Again. D, you still thinking about me? Or are you just playing this safe? I didn't reply. Not at first. I just drove, trying to clear my head. But it was impossible. Every road, every street, every little corner reminded me of the lies I was living. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the way I felt when I was with Damon. The way I felt alive in a way I never did with Jordan. The tension was unbearable. I parked in a public lot and stared at the screen of my phone, torn between doing what I knew was right and giving in to what I wanted more than anything. Then came another message. D, I'll be at the hotel at 7 tonight. I'll be waiting for you. I didn't hesitate. I knew what I was doing. I knew where this was heading, but it didn't matter. I wanted him more than I wanted anything else. I drove straight to the hotel without telling anyone where I was going. Without a second thought. I had crossed a line I didn't even know existed, and now there was no going back. When I walked into the hotel room, Damon was waiting, his eyes dark with need. He didn't need to say anything. I could see the hunger in him too. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The minute I closed the door behind me, we were all over each other, like we hadn't been apart for weeks. It felt like we were already familiar with each other's bodies, like we were both meant to be here, together. It wasn't just sex anymore. It was a need, a demand, a desperation. Damon pulled me onto the bed, pinning me down beneath him. His touch was urgent, possessive, and for the first time, I didn't care that I wasn't in control. I didn't care that I was betraying everything I'd ever worked for. All I cared about was him. I told you, he murmured against my ear. You're mine now. You'll never be the same after this. And he was right, because after tonight, I wasn't. I could feel it in the way he kissed me, the way his hands gripped my body, as if he was marking me, claiming me. It wasn't just an affair. It was more. It was obsession. It was something that burned too hot, something that I couldn't escape from even if I wanted to. But the thing that scared me wasn't just what we were doing. It was the fact that I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to be the woman who made excuses. I didn't want to be the one who tried to fix this. I didn't care about the broken pieces of my life. I just wanted him. The next few days felt like a blur. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. Didn't know who I was. I spent my time alternating between pretending to be the loving wife at home and the woman Damon couldn't stop texting at night. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped a beat. Every message was a reminder of the life I'd been hiding, a life that had become my addiction. I started ignoring Jordan more, making excuses when he asked me to spend time with him or the kids. Every moment I spent with him felt like a lie, like I was drowning in a truth I couldn't share with anyone. Then, one evening, as I sat in the living room scrolling through my phone, Jordan walked in with a look on his face I didn't recognize. It was a mix of frustration and confusion, but mostly, it was hurt. "Sasha," he said, his voice soft, almost too soft. "We need to talk." My heart pounded, but I forced myself to look up at him. "About what?" He sat down next to me, his eyes searching mine like he was trying to read a page he couldn't quite understand. I've been feeling like something's off between us. You've been distant lately. I can't shake it. Is everything okay? The guilt hit me like a tidal wave. How could I look him in the eye and lie? Of course, I said quickly, maybe too quickly. Everything's fine. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded. If you say so. I hated myself in that moment. I hated that I couldn't just be honest with him. But the truth was, I was terrified of losing him. Terrified of losing the life I had built with him, even though a part of me knew it wasn't enough anymore. Later that night, I met Damon again. This time, there were no hotel rooms or secret locations. We met in the car, parked at the edge of town. It was dark, and no one was around. It felt like we were the only two people alive in that moment, and nothing else mattered. We didn't even speak at first. He just pulled me to him, kissing me hard, like we'd never be able to kiss again. My body responded to him instantly. Everything else melted away, leaving only him and the desperate need for more. But this time, as his hands moved over me, something inside me shifted. It wasn't the same rush I'd felt before. It wasn't the same wild desire. I felt empty. I pulled away, looking at him, trying to understand why everything felt wrong now, when just days ago it had felt so right. "What's going on, Sasha?" Damon asked, his voice low, concerned. "You've been acting weird, like something's changed." "I don't know," I whispered, unsure of myself. "It's just, I think I'm starting to feel the weight of it all. The lies, the sneaking around, the betrayal. I never thought it would get to me, but..." He shook his head, cutting me off. "This isn't some passing thing, you know? This is real, and you know it." I didn't want to admit it, but he was right. It was real. Everything about it felt too real. The emotions, the connection, the fire between us. It was becoming more than just an affair. It was a mess I couldn't untangle. But the truth was, I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. "I'm not ready to walk away," I said, barely above a whisper. "I can't." He looked at me with something close to tenderness in his eyes. But there was a darkness there too. Something dangerous. "You think Jordan's blind, don't you?" Damon asked suddenly. "He has no idea what's going on, does he?" I flinched, but I didn't answer. I couldn't, because part of me was terrified that Damon was right. That Jordan was in the dark, but not for long. He'd start noticing the changes, the distance between us, the way I wasn't the same wife he married. And when that day came, I didn't know how I'd look at him without seeing the betrayal written on my face. But for now, all I could do was keep living the lie, keep pretending, keep feeding the addiction. Damon kissed me again, his mouth fierce and urgent. And this time, I let myself go. I gave in to it completely. The car was small, the windows fogging up as our bodies moved together. I didn't care where we were or who might see us. All that mattered was the rawness, the need, the burning hunger that Damon and I created together. When it was over, I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel relieved. I felt even more lost than before, like I had stepped further into the mess, and now there was no way out. I drove home in a daze, trying to clear my head. But it wasn't working. The guilt, the shame, the fear of being caught, they were all swirling inside me, suffocating me. When I walked in the door, Jordan was sitting on the couch, waiting for me. Jaden was already in bed, and the house was quiet. "Where've you been?" he asked, looking up at me. I just needed some air," I said, forcing the words out, my voice shaky. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." He didn't say anything for a moment, just stared at me like he was waiting for something. Like he expected me to say something more. I sat down next to him, and for a moment, I felt like the whole world was closing in. I had no idea how long I could keep up this charade. "I'm just tired," I said quietly. It's been a long week. Jordan nodded, but his eyes never left me. He didn't believe me. I knew it. He could feel the distance too. But still, he kissed my forehead and pulled me closer. And for a brief moment, I let myself believe that everything could go back to normal. But I knew better. Because normal was gone. And I had no idea what was coming next. The next few days felt like an endless storm. A cloud hanging over my every move, my every thought. I was no longer pretending. At least, not as well. It wasn't just Damon now. It was the whole mess of my life. Jordan's suspicion had crept in, and I could feel the tension between us building like a pressure cooker. Every time he looked at me, it was like he was searching for something. I didn't know if he could sense it, or if he was just being paranoid. Either way, I felt cornered. I kept telling myself it was fine, that everything would blow over, but I couldn't escape the reality that I was living a lie. A lie I wasn't sure I could keep up for much longer. I had planned to meet Damon again that night, but Jordan's late-night work calls threw off everything. He was distracted, glued to his phone, as usual, lost in a world that didn't include me. The more I watched him, the more it disgusted me. How was I supposed to feel anything for a man who barely noticed I was there? Around 10 p.m., he went to bed without a word, his back turned to me, his breathing slow and steady. I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and frustration. It wasn't that I wanted to hurt him. It was just that I couldn't help the emptiness I felt every time I looked at him. That emptiness drove me straight to Damon. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and grabbed my keys. This wasn't the first time I'd snuck out. It wouldn't be the last. When I pulled up to the hotel, I felt the usual excitement, the thrill of being with Damon, but tonight, it was tainted. The excitement was there, but it felt hollow. I met him in the same room, but this time something had shifted. The chemistry was still there, but there was an underlying tension. The kind of tension you feel when you're too deep in something you know you shouldn't be in. Damon looked at me with those familiar dark eyes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I wasn't the only one who felt it. He stood there, silent for a moment before speaking. "You okay?" His voice was softer than usual, like he was actually concerned. I hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." He stepped closer, his hands resting on my shoulders. "I get it. But you know, you're not alone in this, right? Whatever this is, we're in it together. No turning back." I shivered at his words. No turning back. That's what I had feared from the very beginning. That there was no coming back from this. No undoing the damage. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I whispered, my voice shaking. "It's like I'm living two lives, Damon. I can't keep pretending everything's fine with Jordan while I'm with you. I can't keep lying to myself." Damon's grip on me tightened. "You think I don't know that? But this is what we've got, Sasha. You can't turn away from what we have. It's too deep." I wanted to push him away, but at the same time, I wanted to feel him, wanted to feel that rush, that escape from everything. Because at that moment, he was the only thing that made sense. But the more I let myself sink into the affair, the more I realized I was losing myself. I didn't even recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror anymore. I kissed him then, pulling him close, but my mind wasn't in it. It wasn't the same rush. It wasn't the same feeling of freedom. When it was over, Damon lay beside me, his arm around my waist, but I felt nothing but a growing emptiness. His words echoed in my head. No turning back. And for the first time, I knew it was true. There was no going back. I had already crossed too many lines. I stayed for a while longer, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside, trying to figure out what I was even doing here. Damon was still asleep when I left, and I couldn't bring myself to look at him, to tell him goodbye. I couldn't. The drive home was a blur. The streets seemed to stretch endlessly in front of me, a mirror of my life. Long, lonely, and uncertain. When I got back to the house, Jordan was still asleep. His phone lay on the nightstand, the screen glowing in the dark. I was careful not to make a sound as I climbed back into bed. The silence between us felt suffocating, like we were strangers lying next to each other, both too tired to speak the truth. But that night, the truth found me in the form of a text. It was from Jordan. I didn't even know he'd gotten up to check his phone. Jordan, I know, Sasha. I know what's been going on. My heart stopped. I stared at the message, trying to process it. Before I could respond, his next message popped up. Jordan, I found the receipts. The hotel, the texts, everything. We need to talk. The air in the house was thick with tension. My fingers shook as I stared at Jordan's text, my heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything I had been running from was right here, staring me in the face. I slowly put my phone down, feeling like the walls were closing in around me. I knew I couldn't avoid this, not anymore. I had no choice but to face the music. Jordan didn't come to bed that night. I kept expecting him to walk in, demanding answers. But instead, the silence hung like a shroud. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. It was coming. I could feel it in my bones. At 7 a.m., the sound of the shower running jolted me awake. Jordan was up. He was here. He was getting ready for work. But I knew this wasn't just any ordinary morning. He walked out of the bathroom, still in his towel, his eyes locking onto mine as he walked past the bed. He didn't say a word, but his silence spoke louder than anything else. I sat up, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to find the right words. But there was nothing I could say that would undo what I had done. I watched him pull on his clothes, every move deliberate, like he was in control of the situation, like he knew exactly what was coming next. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't keep lying. Jordan, I whispered, my voice trembling. We need to talk. He paused, still facing away from me, and for a moment, I thought he wasn't going to respond. But then, slowly, he turned around, his face a mask of unreadable emotion. Do we? He asked quietly, the hurt in his eyes more than I could bear. I swallowed hard, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I never meant for this to happen, but it did. And now you know. I can't hide it anymore. His gaze never wavered, but I could see the pain in the way he was looking at me. The betrayal. The crushing weight of it. How long, Sasha? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How long has this been going on? I didn't want to answer. I didn't want to admit that it had started long before Damon, that it had been building up in me for months. But I couldn't lie to him anymore. A few months, I confessed, barely able to meet his eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear, but I got lost in it. And then it just kept going, and I couldn't stop. The silence that followed was deafening. Jordan didn't say anything. He didn't yell, didn't demand more details. He just stood there, staring at me, like he was trying to process it all, trying to figure out how to deal with the wreckage I had caused. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and strained. I don't know what to say to you right now, Sasha. I don't know how to fix this. His words hit me like a slap. There was no fixing it. Not anymore. I had destroyed everything. The life we had built, the trust, the love. It was all gone, and I was the one who had taken it all away. I'm sorry, I said, the words sounding hollow even as they left my mouth. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. But You're sorry? He interrupted, his eyes flashing with anger now. You think sorry fixes this? You think sorry makes up for what you've done to me? To us? His voice cracked on the last word. I felt a pang of guilt so sharp it almost choked me. I don't know what to say, I whispered, tears starting to sting my eyes. I don't know how to make it right. He stared at me for a long moment, like he was weighing everything I had said. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the entire world had settled on them. I don't know what to do either, Sasha, he said, shaking his head slowly. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't even know if I want to. But I'll tell you one thing. This changes everything. It changes how I see you. It changes how I see us. His words cut through me like a knife. I had expected anger, but hearing him so defeated, so broken, felt worse than anything I could have imagined. I never meant to lose you, I said, my voice barely audible, a tear slipping down my cheek. I never wanted to lose us. Jordan didn't answer. He didn't even look at me as he grabbed his keys from the counter and walked out the door. He didn't slam it. He didn't shout. He just left. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to run after him, beg him to stay, but I knew it was too late. The damage was done. I heard the engine of his truck start up in the driveway, and then the sound of him driving off. I could hear my own breath in the silence that followed. It felt so final. I wanted to call Damon, but I didn't. I couldn't. For the first time in months, I felt the weight of what I had lost, the trust of the man who had been my partner, the father of my child, the one person who had never given up on me. But I didn't know how to go back, didn't know how to undo what had been done. Jordan hadn't said goodbye. He hadn't told me it was over, but in my heart, I knew it was. And I didn't know how to face the consequences of what I had done. The days after Jordan left felt like a blur. I walked around the house in a daze, numb to everything around me. The silence was deafening, every creak of the floorboards or flutter of the curtains like a reminder of what I had lost. I had never felt more alone in my life. The weight of my actions, of the lies, of the betrayal, was crushing. There was no way to escape it now. I had tried calling Jordan multiple times, but he didn't answer. He didn't return any of my messages. I didn't know where he was, but I didn't expect him to come back. Not after what I had done. He had every right to walk away, and I knew it. But that didn't stop the ache inside me, the emptiness that gnawed at my soul. I couldn't fix this. I couldn't make it right. I thought about Damon, but the thought of him only made the guilt burn even worse. He had been the escape, the thrill, the passion that had kept me going when I felt lost. But now, I was left with nothing but the wreckage of a life I had destroyed. A few days later, as I was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the TV, my phone buzzed. My heart skipped a beat as I saw Jordan's name flash on the screen. I didn't know whether to answer or not. I didn't know what he wanted to say, but I knew I needed to hear his voice, even if it meant facing the consequences of what I had done. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello? There was a long pause on the other end, and then his voice, raw and full of emotion, came through. Sasha, he said, his voice shaking. We need to talk. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not. I know, I whispered, my throat tightening. I know, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know if I can do this anymore, he said, his words hanging in the air. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I can't keep living like this. I need time. I need space. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I understand, I whispered. Take all the time you need. There was another long silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, the weight of his decision pressing down on us both. Finally, he spoke again. I don't know what happens next, Sasha. I don't know if we can fix this, but I need you to know that I'm hurt. I'm really hurt by what you did. I know, I said again, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I know, and I can't change what happened. I can't take it back. All I can do is be sorry. There was a soft sigh on the other end. I need some time to figure out what I want, but I don't know if I can stay in this relationship anymore. I need to figure out what's best for me. The weight of his words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, but I couldn't let them fall. I couldn't show him how much I was falling apart inside. I had already destroyed everything, and now I was watching him slip further and further away. I understand, I said, my voice barely audible. I'll give you the time you need. There was another pause, and then he spoke again, his voice softer this time. I just need to be honest with myself, Sasha. And you need to be honest with yourself, too. This is bigger than both of us. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. The reality of the situation had finally hit me. This wasn't just about me and Damon or me and Jordan. It was about my choices, my actions, and the consequences that came with them. After a long moment of silence, Jordan finally said, "I'll call you later. I need to go. I can't do this right now." And with that, he hung up. I sat there in the silence, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I had lost him. I had lost everything. I had chosen passion, excitement, and escape over the person who had stood by me, loved me, and built a life with me. And now, I had nothing. The tears came then, hot and fast. I cried for the life I had thrown away, for the love I had destroyed, for the future I could never get back. I cried for the woman I had become, the woman I didn't even recognize anymore. I picked up the phone and for the first time in weeks, I dialed Damon's number, but he didn't pick up. I left a message, but even as I spoke the words, I knew it didn't matter. It was too late. Everything was too late. I had no one now. I stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the street below. The world outside looked the same. Nothing had changed, but everything had. My life, my future, everything I thought I knew had been ripped apart. And it was all my fault. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if Jordan would ever come back. I didn't know if I would ever find my way back to the person I used to be. But I knew one thing for sure. This was the end of the road. And so, Sasha's story ends. At the crossroads of choices made, love lost, and a future uncertain. This is the kind of raw, emotional truth that we all face when we find ourselves at the mercy of our own decisions. Thank you for joining me through this journey. If you've been moved by Sasha's story or have felt the weight of her mistakes, I'd love to hear what you would have done in her shoes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new chapter of this series or others just like it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Tell me, what would you have done if you were in Sasha's place? Could you have made different choices? Let's talk about it below. Until next time, stay tuned for more stories from the vault.